Basically, bitterness is a seed from hell.
Yeah.
I know that's a strong statement, but it is. It's a seed from hell. It will actually open you up to the demonic realm, because the demonic realm actually thrive on bitterness, unforgiveness. And the concerning thing is that often in God's people we don't even know that it's there in us. The Bible tells us that our hearts are deceitful above all things. Who can know it? So bitterness is not always obvious to us, which we understand. You know, oftentimes in counsel, when the Lord shows you bitterness in someone, and you know there's a saying in English that says it takes one to know one. So when you've dealt with stuff in your life, God will often show you the same things in other people's lives. So I speak it from an absolute place of humility and humbleness before the Lord. You know, it's not as though I'm better than anybody else. But when the Lord shows you that there's bitterness in their hearts and you ask them, is there bitterness? They'll say, no. Don't know what you're talking about. So it's very clear to me that we don't always know about it. It's also easy for us to justify bitterness, because when there's been an injustice, somehow we think that the bitterness balances out the injustice, and we almost justify it in our own hearts that it's okay. But the outworking of bitterness will always leave fruit in your life, and it will show on the outside for those who are discerning and walking with the Lord. It's oftentimes hard for us to move forward from things that have hurt us in the past, traumas, rejection in particular. But what we sometimes miss is that it's the little things in life that can make us bitter.
Yeah.
It's actually stuff that accumulates over a period of time, and it starts festering in our hearts, and we don't know that it's there. And now we know from the book of Job, if we put it all into context, that the minute things changed with Job was when God spoke to him. And we know that Job had become bitter, and we know that he questioned God. And I don't think God has a problem with us questioning him. He's God. He's not scared off by our questions. But I just wanted to read a little portion of Job for you where God actually speaks to Job. Because I think for me it puts it all into perspective how big bitterness can be for us, but how big God is compared to all that.
Amen.
Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me." Imagine God saying that to you. Where were you, Mari, Job, Jessica, Vanna, Paul, Benny, all of us here? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? What would all of us say? We don't know. Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? And so it carries on how God asks him. And then he says to him, "Have you entered the springs of the sea? Or have you walked in search of the depths? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me if you know all this." And most of us did not have anything to say. And I think that's what Job really put everything into perspective of how big God is. The thing is about us is when we are very deeply offended, when we are, you need the scripture, Job 38. When we are deeply offended, when we're very disappointed by people, we oftentimes get disappointed by people that we love very deeply. When we are rejected or we are hurt, bitterness can germinate in our hearts. And one of the fruits of that is that we can tend to start having an unloving spirit towards people and an unforgiving spirit. Hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions are caused by bitterness in our heart. Sometimes when we have disappointments in our lives, when we have failures and when we have setbacks, and I don't think any of us can say that we haven't had that in our lives. We've all had that to some extent. It's beyond our control. We have no control over it. And because of that, we feel quite powerless. There's nothing we can do about it. And that can make us have an unloving spirit towards others and make us feel like we're not accepted. And in essence, with self-bitterness, what happens is you attack yourself. You don't even need the devil to do it. You attack yourself physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and it's very, very destructive. And I have to ask you, if we cannot forgive ourselves, how can God forgive us? And if we can't love ourselves, then how can we love our neighbor as the word tells us to do? We actually simply can't.